Phyrexians invading the multiverse! All of the multiverse is under attack! Characters are being completed left and right. Worlds fall to their knees against the glory of Phyrexia. But don't worry, because they've been defeated and erased from the multiverse, and the invasion of the multiverse is over already. We can relax and stop thinking about it. March the Machine isn't even out yet, and already it's let me down immeasurably. It's bad, and I'm sad and mad. I'm not sure what shape this video will take. It probably would have been better as a scripted thing, but I don't want to take much time away from the Guildless, so I'm going to try and cram everything I had to say about this set into one video. It should probably be longer than I want it to be, because it was incredibly disappointing. My main problem with March the Machine is from a story perspective, but I feel like the problems with the story taint everything to the point where I'm just pissed off. Such a letdown. I'll get into more of my problems with the story later on in the video, but the main problem is just the fact that it's already over. Before we've had a chance to play with the set, we already know that the Phyrexians have been defeated, and the threat of them even is almost entirely nullified, so hooray, what stakes? What stakes? It's not a terrible looking set. I think I even have a couple of positive things to say in this video, although it will be generally pretty negative. But I'll start with the set itself, and we'll save the story till the end of the video.
Ended up rambling about the cards of the set for longer than I meant to, and if you don't care about that, you can skip to here to just hear me talk about the story. I feel like we should talk about the cards first, because if we talk about the story first, then the set will lose all of its appeal.
But let's start with some mildly positive things. So for those who don't know, March the Machine is about Phyrexia invading all of the multiverse. The last set that we had was I can never say that name. Phyrexia All Will Be One, where we saw new Phyrexia for the first time in years, and at the end of that set, Elesh Norn, who is the leader of them, activated Realm Breaker, which is a tree which allows them to invade multiple other worlds. March the Machine is now them simultaneously, seemingly invading every relevant plane, including a bunch of ones that have only showed up on like one card or so. Difficult idea to try and cram into one set, but here we are. In concept, I love the idea of Phyrexia invading the multiverse. That sounds like an endless treasure trove of fun. Look, we've got cool examples of it even. Like Expedition Lookout. Skills honed on perilous treasure hunts help Zendikar's adventurers stay a crucial step ahead of their Phyrexian foes, who's using their Zendikari knowledge of hiding behind stuff to evade the Phyrexians. Or Flywheel Racer, who is using his aether-powered motorbike to escape Gitaxian Phyrexian on Kaladesh. In concept, I like the idea of the set as featuring every plane. Everyone's got a favourite plane, and they're all here somewhere, except mine, I guess, because it's Phyrexia now. There's, like, stakes involved inherently for every player. I feel like everyone has a favourite plane, even if they don't care about the story. There's no better way to get everyone invested in a Magic set than say, like, your favourite plane's affected as well, look! I'm sure maybe there's some obscure thing that's been left out that someone wishes was there, but actually tell me in the comments if your favourite obscure plane from a comic I've not read 100 years ago isn't here. I'm not that excited about it mechanically, as I said. It's kind of a mishmash, which I do like as a thing. I'm into mishmashy sets. Backup is fun. There's that one Conclave one that's like, backup. That's quite fun. That'll be fun to say when you play it. Incubate, actually. Maybe I'm slagging off the mechanics too early, and I do actually like them. Yeah, both backup and incubate are both quite cool, to be fair. I'm just dumb. It's really flavorful. I enjoy creating growing threats in the background that aren't gonna get you right now, but they'll get you. They'll get you. Or more likely, they'll get Vandal Blasted. Yeah, the transforming cards are thematic, obviously, because of Phyrexia completing stuff. So, yeah, pretty ideal way to show that. And I like that they brought, I guess they did this already with the Planeswalkers, but they managed to bring back Phyrexian mana in a way that didn't inherently just break the game. So that's good. It's all been used on cards where you have to pay some kind of other color, like, for example, this Aetherblade Agent. It's a black card with a blue Phyrexian transformation ability, which turns it into a black-blue Phyrexian. But you don't actually need to run blue to run this card. You just have to run black, because you can pay life for the Phyrexian mana. Whereas before, it kind of broke the color pie because, like, there were spells that would just cost Phyrexian mana in their cost, so you didn't have to necessarily run the color they were in. You could just run them in your, you could run, I can't remember what that spell's called, the one that gives them -5/-5. You could run that in any deck, and you didn't have to have black, essentially, was the point. And that was bad for the game, apparently. So, well done for bringing it back. and not breaking the game. Some of them I liked because they turned into sort of versions of old Phyrexian cards. Oh yeah, like Itali Primal Conqueror, who's a dinosaur from Ixalan, and he does exiling things from the top of people's libraries, which is what the original Itali does. And then if you pay 10 or 9 and 2 life, you can transform him into basically Blightsteel Colossus, but as Itali. And then the other one, which I can kind of remember what it's doing, but I need to find it to look at it to confirm what I'm saying. There he is. Polacranus. Polocranus. It's a Hydra. It's a big Hydra. Elsbeth killed it in a story a little while ago. Then it was in the Underworld. I think it's back now. Freed from the Underworld, the World Eater resumed his endless feast with reckless enthusiasm. Magic definitely is really bad for just bringing characters back, but it is a setting which has a bunch of resurrection, so that's fine. And also Theros has an underworld, so it's a bit less of a stretch for things to just keep coming back to life on that plane. And now he's been completed. He looks all Norny. It's a 6/6 with reach and lifelink, and whenever Polocranus, Engine of Ruin, or another non-token Hydra you control dies, create a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra creature token with reach, and a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra creature token with lifelink. So he does it for all your Hydras, which is amazing, but he splits in half, like Wormcoil Engine, where the 2 tokens that Wormcoil Engine makes have half of its power and toughness and one of its abilities each. This is giving it the same kind of thing, although, that had Death Touch, which is kind of a bit better. But this does give it to all your Hydras, and I actually really, really like the look of this now. The more I think about it, maybe this is my favourite looking commander in the set, now that I actually think about it for 2 seconds. Oh yeah, Rona finally became Phyrexian. Good job, Rona. It's weird that she wasn't a Phyrexian in Dominaria, because she was like leading a bunch of Phyrexians. At last, I am complete. Yeah, exactly. Jesus Christ, at last. Rona was a Phyrexian worshipping cultist on Dominaria who helped Sheoldred invade. No, she is. Oh no, was. Correct. Was is correct. She's kind of dead. She's semi-dead, like all the Phyrexians, I guess, now. I shouldn't have done it, Rhoda. You were so close. The Praetors each have a new card. They'll just have their name without any adjectives or anything, or titles. And they all transform into a saga, which then transforms back into them when the saga's done doing it. All the sagas are named generally after their sort of guiding philosophy or their goal. So the blue one is called the Great Synthesis, and the green one is called the Grand Evolution, and the red one is called the Great Work. And then the black one is called the True Scriptures, which I guess the black faction doesn't really have a guiding philosophy. Maybe the True Scriptures are the black faction's constructed response to Elesh Norn's interpretation of Phyrexian faith. True Scriptures, I guess, because they're probably the closest to the original Phyrexians, being black. And then Elesh Norn's, I guess the Argent Etchings makes sense, but the Argent Etchings is more just the delivery method
for Elesh's Phyrexian philosophy. The Etchings, the faction's religious text, used to be differently interpreted by the 3 sects within the White faction.
By the time of March of the Machine, it doesn't really feel like there's much to the White Phyrexians outside of Elesh's interpretation of the faith. Because the other ones are called sort of what the goal is that they're working towards. I suppose the black one isn't, but as it works so well with the other 3, I sort of wish this was called something like the Great Unity or something like that, like the Grand Unification, I don't know. Each of the Praetors has been given a redesign, I guess, to make them look more imposing, which is true for most of them, save for poor Sheoldred, who last time we saw grafted to a giant worm engine thing, and now she's just stuck on the arm of a statue. None of them are bad. None of the additions look. I quite like Jingataxius's tentacle legs. That's quite fun. And Urabrask now finally has a card with the redesign that they gave him last set, plus some claws that he might have had then. I don't know if he did. Yeah, and Elesh Norn's spikier now, less sinewy, which is fine. She definitely doesn't look better. It's really good art, lovely art by Magali Villanueva. It's fantastic, but it just isn't needed, Elesh didn't need a redesign. There's some minor justification of it in the story, I think, where Elesh is adding armor bits to herself while she's fighting Elspeth, I think. None of their redesigns are bad, but none of them were particularly needed either. Another main draw of this set is the Alliance creatures. 2 previous legendary creatures all mashed together on a single card. Apparently these originally were going to be people from different planes working together, but then that wasn't where the direction of the story went, so it became people from the same plane sort of unlikely, well, just allies. Some of them are unlikely allies, generally just allies teaming up.
And I recorded the video for this video before WotC released an article that gave us some more context for some of these pairings, as well as a Planeswalker's Guide to the Invasion of New Phyrexia. So I'll interject with some updated voiceover after my initial confused responses to the then contextless cards.
You got Croxa and Kunaros in the Underworld. I feel like these two aren't really teaming up. The camera just happened to catch them at this angle. That's how they're a card.
Croxa the Titan was released from his chains because Athreos saw him being effective at smashing Phyrexians, and the dog's making sure that he doesn't veer off track.
Rankle and Torbran, who look great. A fairy and a dwarf from Eldraine, which is a sort of storybook world. The Vico Meneses art on the base one is lovely, but I particularly love the Omar Rayan, the fancy frame one. And it's got a gorgeous storybook quality to it, which works perfectly well with the Eldraine theme and frame.
Unlike many pairings, these two actually were the focus of the invasion side story of their plane of Eldraine, and it was one of the better ones that I don't even want to spoil.
Rashmi's hanging out with Ragavan. Saint Traft is haunting a new human, I guess. He used to haunt Thalia. I don't know if haunt is the right word, but you know what I mean. He's a nice ghost. Nicely haunt. I had to look up who Halar was, and this is kind of a thing with a lot of these. The Fire Fletcher. It's an elf card. I now realize it's from Dominaria. I sort of vaguely remember that card existing. Shalai is cool, but Shalai, I think of for giving all your creatures hexproof, and this doesn't do that. Or even your planeswalkers, I think she does that. She puts plus 1 counters on stuff, which Shalai also does, kind of, occasionally, if you have nothing else to spend 6 mana on. So it's weird that a Shalai card is missing the hexproof part, which is I would consider the most important part of her, but it's fine. Slimefoot and Squee, both of the, what's the right word? The gimmicky side character, cutesy gimmicky side characters from each of the eras of the Weatherlight are together, so that's cute. Thalia and the Gitrog monster, there's some sort of weird meme or rumor that the Gitrog monster ate her or something, but I don't know if this card is a reference to that, or if that rumor has come about since this card existed. I don't know. Where's that rumor come from? Because that didn't happen in the story.
The Gitrog monster is a big frog that cultists bring sacrifices to, and when Phyrexia got in the way of that, it made a beeline for Thraben, where it found the famous Cathar Thalia. The implication is the Gitrog lets her ride it because it knows that humans bring it food, which is cute, although Thalia is indeed wary of becoming its next meal.
It's more clear in the alternate art that she's wielding Avacyn's spear still. Yargle and Multani,
a frog spirit and a powerful elemental on Dominaria, both cards with a large power.
I know everyone's probably already said this at this point because this card got spoiled ages ago, but it's just a bit obscene, isn't it? 18-6? I know power creep is real, obviously. Power creep is real. But this is a bit absurd. He has triple the vanilla power for his mana cost. That's so a lot. Couldn't he have been an 18-2 or something? Or a 3? I don't know, just something else to balance it. The fact that he's got his vanilla toughness for 6, and then, just triple that for the power. That's just so much. This is so, I know I guess the balancing is that he's got no abilities, but it's so easily broken. But I like that they're actually teaming up, they're melding together. So that's fun, because that's not the case with too many of them. I don't know anything about Strixhaven. I really should read at least the basic lore of Strixhaven. It just so deeply does not interest me. But Simone and Dina, maybe if you're in Strixhaven and you liked those two, it's really fun seeing them team up. Yep, probably. Jeru and Hazaret. I love Hazaret. Jeru is also there. Baral and Karizev. I can't remember if they interacted in the story or not. I don't think they did.
Baral broke out of the jail he was in for being a knobend in the Kaladesh story and was chancely found by the pirate rebel Karizev, who gave him the choice of walk the plank or join the ranks, temporarily under much scrutiny, as they fought on opposite sides of the plane's recent revolution.
It would have been, I guess it would have been but wouldn't a more emotionally impactful pairing, maybe it's pushing the line way too much, but Baral and Pia Nala, that would be a more unlikely allies thing than Karizev, right? I mean, maybe that's too far. He did kind of kill her husband, but Drana and Linvala, which is fine, but I kind of feel it's look, an angel and a vampire from Zendikar, but I feel we already had that with Drana being an ally in Battle for Zendikar, where it was oh look, even the vampires are allies now. It's fine, but it's I already had this sensation with this exact same character already on a different card. And also it would have been nice to just give these two the ally type, just to sort of reference them, Zendikar. Zendikar Arenas. Elender and Azor is fun. I like the two deity figures of Ixalan teaming up, and it looks like a semi-fun card to play. Are they on Ixalan? It's hard to say from the art, really. I just thought Elendid went somewhere afterwards. And what's Azor doing? Has he just been sat in the temple ever since? Did he get locked in the temple? Even if he was, he was kind of sat there already. Sphinxes are probably more content to just sit about than most other races are. So maybe he just went back to sitting in the temple after Jason Vraska left, I don't know. Higetsugu and Kairi is another one I had to look up. It's the blue dragon of the new dragon cycle. The blue one! Neither of these characters are particularly interesting to me, but the art is stunning. Chris Ryan's obviously really good. Oh, that's a good scene with Kairi electrocuting that Phyrexian in the background balanced. I know it's like, obviously blue and orange is a classically appealing colour pairing, but it does fucking look great here. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the pairings could be chosen for a bit more emotional impact. Like I was saying, maybe Baral and PNLR is pushing it a bit. And maybe it requires a bit too much explanation as to why they would be fighting together on one card. But I want more stuff like that. I just feel like a lot of the time these weren't particularly exciting combinations. It's just like, blah! They're not really. Catilda and Leah. Do you remember Leah? He's a card that exists. Kogla and Yadaro, which is cool. It's kind of like Kong and Godzilla, because Kogla is like Kong and Yadaro was Godzilla at one point. But like, the real Godzilla card was that other one that is on the back of the Ikoria card. I can't remember what it's called. Zalortha or something like that. If it was Kogla and Zalortha, that would have definitely felt way more like Kong and Godzilla, if that's what they're going for.
I do like that Kogla is impaling Phyrexians on Yadaro's spiky back, though. The article says the turtle doesn't even seem to mind.
Serac and Goreclaw, which, like, is that implying that Goreclaw was the bear that Serac punched in the other universe? I don't think so. It doesn't look big enough. How big is the original Serac? Was it really ever that impressive that he punched a bear? Like, what are his stats? Serac Dragonclaw. Let's see. If he's bigger than a 2/2, then it's not very impressive that he punched a bear in the face. You're a 6/6, mate, alright? Who gives a shit? That's a pretty big bear, though. Maybe that was Goreclaw before he got some scars. Either way, didn't happen in this timeline, did it? He punched a dragon. 2 Titans of Tarkir carved a swath through Phyrexia's elite. Titans of Tarkir? I mean, maybe Goreclaw, I suppose. I'll give you that, because he's like a bear that has the ability to stand up to dragons, apparently. But Serac is the meal guy. He fetches Atarka's meals in this current timeline. Tarkir used to have a different timeline where humans were in charge and dragons were extinct. And then Sarkhan undid all that, and dragons are in charge now of the clans that used to previously be controlled by humans. And Serac used to lead the Tima clan. Now he just fetches dinner for Atarka, who does. Why do I care about him anymore? I kind of feel like that with all the not clans, the leaders of the various clans of Tarkir. We got to see them in the alternate timeline, in the current Dragons of Tarkir timeline. And they were all, except for Narset, who managed to planeswalk her ass out of there. Everyone else kind of got really screwed, and their cards make me really sad. Like Zergo Bellringer. Poor Zergo used to be a Helm Smasher, now he's a Bellringer. And here he is, riding on Ojutai, one of the Dragon Lords that rules the plane. So it's like, what is he contributing here?
The Pairs article made it clear that Zergo actually led the effort to unite the dragons and the not dragons against the Phyrexians. I'm not sure why the dragons couldn't just order the not dragons to fight for them as they rule them, but I guess this symbol of unity is even more powerful than a dragon's command. Zergo's an outcast now, I'm guessing, because he went to Ojutai, who isn't his Dragon Lord. Anyway, back to past me being skeptical about how Zergo's actually helping.
Firstly, I don't think Zergo adds much to any combat situation nowadays. And secondly, like, especially compared to Ojutai, I feel this way about a few of these pairings, where like Talia, I'm guessing, is doing something from the back of the Gitrog monster. Fair play, she's probably helping out. I feel like Golta's really pulling most of the weight in this pairing, though. But maybe not, okay? Maybe Mavrin is doing some vampire stuff from the back. I could believe that more than with other characters.
He's actually leading his typically anti-dinosaur vampires to follow in the wake of Golta's destruction and mop Phyrexians up.
I don't like Borgbrigmus and Fibblethip. Mark Roswell said that was his favourite card from the set, and I just don't like it. I don't... Firstly, and I mean being really picky, but the art by Rudy Siswanto, it's great, except it's great. All of it is great, except for Borborigmus's eye.
I'm not sure if it's just the size of his eye or the cartoonish quality of it, but it just makes him look so stupid.
And the other art by Justin and Alexis Hernandez, which comes in that gorgeous frame, which I will talk about later, and this sort of Art Nouveau style. My only nitpick is I wish there was some impact from Borborigmus's big club thing on the arm of Realmbreaker here. It's just kind of weird that it's like connecting with it and not doing anything. And you can like see the impact of the swing in his hair in Fibblethip being like picked up off of his head, but nothing's happening. Anyway, regardless, it's much better than the other art, which isn't bad, except for that eye, which makes it terrible. What the fuck is Fibblethip contributing here? Yeah, yeah. All right, yeah, fair enough. Moral support. All right.
He's actually yelping in fright repeatedly, and Borborygmus is using him as a kind of alarm, which definitely makes me like this more than I initially did, at least.
Though he definitely isn't yelping here. And, he does the Fibblethip thing of putting himself into your library as an ability. But just, I feel like if this was on a Ravnica set, Fibblethip would just be there, and it wouldn't be a part of the card, because he's just in the background of like a million cards, so it doesn't matter. And I don't know. There's no connection between these characters, and they don't do anything together, and I don't really imagine them interacting anyway. I'm not like picking better ones to provide a better example. Maybe I should do, but I just feel like lots of these pairings are a bit weak. They're just kind of thematic, and a lot of them involve characters you have to look up, because it's like barely anyone remembers. What about Borborygmus and Krenko instead? And again, these people don't have a relationship, but like say you had Borborygmus in the background, wrecking shit, Krenko in the foreground, picking valuables out of the wreckage or whatever. That'd be way more fun than just like, yeah, I'm also here. At least Fibblethip looks right again, as opposed to in the art of his card where like, who is this? Oh yeah, on that note, Krenko had a reprint in the Commander deck. It's one of the Commander decks that come out with this. Krenker. Save that one. She looks rich. I like the art, kind of. What? Even more than Fibblethip. Every time Krenko's been painted for a new piece of art, he looks completely different. Like, the original art for Krenko Tin Street Kingpin looks nothing like Krenko Mob Boss art by Karl Kavinsky. And then the new art for Krenko Tin Street Kingpin by Vico Meneses again, doesn't look anything like the previous one or the original. They're all just 3 different goblins with completely different noses. It's like, that's the main thing. Their noses are not the same in any way. If Krenko gets a new card, can we just have him look like the original again? I don't know, why has this happened? I'm a little disappointed by most of the pairings, though. I think like they could be better. Or for example, which one could be good? It's clear from the invasion of Amonkhet art that all 3 of Amonkhet's remaining gods are still there.
Amonkhet's an Egyptian-y plane that Nicol Bolas fucked up and turned it into a big army factory. He warped 3 of its gods beyond recognition, and one of those died, and the only surviving uncorrupted god was Hazaret, the god of zeal.
The Scarab god and the Locust god are there with Hazaret, seemingly working together, which is cool as fuck. Why the fuck is bloody Jeru here with Hazaret instead of, like, Hazaret and the Locust God? What? What a missed opportunity. Fuck Jeru. Who the fuck cares about Jeru? He's literally the worst character in the Amonkhet story. We could have had, or like Amonkhet's remaining gods or something as a single card. All 3 of them. That would have been, like, the coolest one of these. Damn it. Why a stupid fucking loser here? The Locust God has one of my favorite character designs in Magic. It's so good. Look at those fucking hands. They're so dumb and big and horrifying. It's the best. More emotional payoff in the pairings would have been better. I feel like most of these are a bit randomly chosen. Moira and Tashar demonstrates this, right? There's only one pairing where they've both been Phyrexianized. So it's like sort of like turning the concept of this group of cards on its head by being like, oh look, Moira and Tashar, but they're both Phyrexian. Right. Would have been great if I gave a shit about either Moira or Tashar. Tashar I kind of remember, and he's a semi-popular mono-white commander. Who the living fuck is Moira? Who is Moira? I specifically didn't look this up the other day when I realized I had no idea who Moira was. Okay, I kind of vaguely recognize the art for this card. In life, Moira was a powerful necromancer who worked her craft in the marshes of Urborg, binding spirits to her will and forcing them to serve her. When one of her spells backfired, destroying her mortal form, Moira found herself in the same position as so many of her minions and realized the error of her ways. Now, Moira uses her necromantic powers benevolently, helping the newly deceased adjust to their afterlife. She firmly believes that no spirit should be enslaved to another's will, which often puts her at odds with the Lich Ratadrabik, who I do remember as a card, because he's a much better card. So yep, she's from the last Dominaria set. So, great. Oh no, I'm so sad that Moira, the friendly ghost, got completed. Along with Tashar, my favourite bird man I've not thought about since... I think I've got a foil one in a booster a million years ago, and I haven't looked at it since. The battle cards, the invasions, are probably my favourite cards in the set, at least for flavour. I actually haven't had a chance to play with any of them yet. So they're sort of like reverse Planeswalkers, where you give it to somebody and then try and kill it, and then it flips and you get the reverse side. And each of them depict the invasion of the plane in their name by Phyrexia. Now, there are 36, it's quite a lot. Pretty much every relevant plane is here somewhere being invaded. It's really cool to see a bunch of planes again that only show up in like Plane Chase, etc. And there's new Plane Chase cards for the set, which give you the same kind of feeling. Yeah, I already mentioned how the gods are teaming up on Amonkhet, and that's fucking rad. I like Amonkhet more than it deserves, because I guess it's probably like the most one-note plane in existence. But the Amonkhet god designs were so good. I don't think there was an Invasion of Amonkhet story. Yeah, Invasion of Dominaria flips into a Sarah Angel, which is kind of cool. I guess you get like a sort of undercosted Sarah Angel, and also 4 life in a card from the other side, and that's quite nice. I was there when Phyrexia doomed Sarah's realm with a single touch. I was there when Yawgmoth tried and failed to conquer Dominaria, and I will still be here when Elesh Norn lies dead. It'd be nice if they threw in a line about the second Dominarian invasion, because this is the third. This is the third time Phyrexia has invaded Dominaria at this point, so it'd be nice if there was a sort of a throw-in line about her being there defending the Mana Egg or something like that. Cool that it's a Sarah Angel, which is one of the most famous ye olde Magic cards. Fiora, which is a really cool sort of Renaissance Italy-inspired looking plane. It's the setting of the conspiracy sets, and it's all about like political intrigue and backstabbing machinations, and the most backstabbing of them all, Queen Marchesa, is depicted on the back, being ruthlessly awesome as ever. She was a fun character who killed her way to the throne with the help of Kaya in Conspiracy 2, and it's nice to see her again. And I implore anyone who hasn't played Marchesa in EDH to make some kind of Marchesa deck, because you can make whatever you want, and she's just fun to have in the command zone. Gorbakan, what is that? That was Teu's home plane. Yay, everyone from Gorbakan does shields. We do shields on Gorbakan. Oh, there he is. Zilortha. Godzilla's on the back of the Ikoria card, as opposed to next to Kogla, where I want him to be. But that's fine. He looks great here. Phyrexia's largest Goliath stormed Ikoria, ready to challenge the world's great monsters. Zilortha was unimpressed. So that's fun. Invasion of Innistrad. The eerie magic animating Innistrad's zombies rendered them immune to phyresis, making them crucial to the plane's defense. Which, like, isn't that what we did last time? That there was a big interplanar invasion of Innistrad, the zombies weren't affected, so they helped out. This is a bit lame. And what about Innistrad's magic makes Phyrexia not able to reanimate the dead? Like, Phyrexia seems pretty good at doing that, so this is stupid. Oh, what happened to Lorwyn? What happened to Lorwyn? The elves. The elves didn't like them. Invasion of Segovia! Segovia is a world we've seen a few times on a couple of cards. It's never been the focus of a thing, but it's a world where everything is 1/100th of the scale it is here. So you can see this big Phyrexian foot crashing through the ocean, which is quite fun. There's this annoying detail I've always hated about Segovia, that if you planeswalk there, you immediately get shrunk down to size, which is like, the fuck is the point of that? Why would you have a world where it's 100th of the scale, but if you go there, you're 100th of the scale, so it's completely pointless? Like, there's such a stupid detail about Segovia. Luckily, apparently if you break in there with Realmbreaker, that doesn't apply, so we get to actually, see the promise of Segovia pay off. And Satyr, Sea Tyrant of Segovia, is on the backside of the card. This big worm is pulling a Phyrexian under. It's just adorable. Good times on Segovia. Maybe not for Segovia. It kind of looks like, as funny as this is, and it makes the Phyrexians look really embarrassing, I struggle to believe that they really managed to put much of a fight up on Segovia, right? Like, surely the Phyrexians had an easy time there, you would think. Apparently not. Xerx is another fun plane that's had the same kind of thing, previously showing up in this Escher-esque plane of theirs. And the only thing we know about Segovia is that, like, nothing really fucking makes any sense there. Like, the laws of physics break down and reality is just bizarre and kaleidoscopic and incomprehensible. So the Xerx shows up in a few cards here, like Xerx Strobe Knight and Vertex Paladin. The literal-minded Phyrexians made the greatest mistake possible on Xerx. They tried to understand what they were seeing. Yeah, I like the idea of Xerx. I like struggling to imagine Phyrexia invading Xerx. That's fun. Chandelier is a world that showed up in core sets and things. It's had a few cards. It was the setting for a video game from the 90s that I haven't played, but I do want to. And it's kind of basic bitch-esque. I think it's sort of supposed to, I think Wizards used it as like we need somewhere for typical fantasy stuff to take place during core sets, so that's kind of Chandelier's job, is to be kind of basic. Apparently Phyrexia only sent one guy to it to hack at some vines, and he's gonna get those vines, he's gonna get them. Looks like he's got a real job ahead of him, if that's what he's doing. What is he doing? Who? Why? Why is there only one guy? Why is he attacking some vines? Why is the invasion of Chandelars so underwhelming? I don't get it. Anyway, that one dude really didn't do very well. Chandelar's wild magic stripped away the unnatural Phyrexian carapaces, reclaiming the true form hidden underneath. Maybe Norn should have said more than one guy. Vryn is fun to see. It's Jace's homeworld that we've not really seen before. Outside of, again, a few cards. It was like a minor subject of the set Magic Origins, where we saw a few cards from it. The only thing we really know about it is that it has these giant mage rings, which run along it, and we don't know what they do. Except beat Phyrexians! On my signal, disable the safeguards. Let's blow these metal freaks right back to their own world. Gav Balerin, majoring engineer.
Gav is actually Jace's dad, who we've only seen in his backstory being not a particularly good dad.
Ulgrotha, where we can see some vampires and Phyrexians fighting in the sky. Maybe vampire Phyrexians. And this is the setting of the set Homelands. It was where the vampire Baron Sengir used to hang out and hold dominion over the poor people of Homelands, I think. I don't really know anything about it. But here we have Grandmother Ravi Sengir, looking a lot healthier than she does on her original card, but she is riding around in a bat-pulled chariot, and it's just great. Was yanking a Phyrexian behind her. I do enjoy a good apocalypse. Excellent. Oh yeah, that was mildly interesting to see. Tolvada, which we haven't seen in any capacity before, I don't think. It's Kaya's homeworld. The only thing we knew about it before was that the sky is shattered. The sky's broken. And here's the broken sky. It's full of ghosts, and they're beating up Phyrexians. So, sorry, Phyrexia. And you might have come to realize a bit of a problem with all of these invasion cards. As cool as they are, and they show the conflict happening on every single world, they show Phyrexia losing on every single world. Every single one of these battles, which on the front depicts like a relatively tense combat, which doesn't necessarily have a particular clear winner. On the back, Phyrexia's losing every single time. They didn't win in any of them. Which just, I suppose, is accurate to how the thing played out in the end, but it just gives you this impression of Phyrexia just fucking sucking. They're just rubbish. They can't win a single fight anywhere. Even on the plane where everyone's tiny ant people they lose. They get torn apart by worms. It just, well, vines. A bunch of vines and worms are beating up Phyrexians all across the multiverse. So it's a bit, yeah, they're really cool. I like the look and flavour of them a lot. I wish there was some sort of other outcome that was possible on any of these cards. Like, it'd be, I guess be more fun if, like, turning all of them over for the first time actually held some kind of surprise as to who the winner was. But I guess not. Phyrexia just can't muster a single win. I think outside of that, I just have some random individual cards to say things about. Sharknado got completed, I'm afraid. Ikoria's very own Sharknado. Good card. I like Sharknado 2, the magic card. Etched Familiar, which is like a filigree familiar from Kaladesh, but now completed, which is cute. No refunds. Ichor Drinker depicts a vampire drinking the wrong type of blood. Actually joining the tradition of vampires being really fucking stupid in the middle of apocalypses in MTG, thanks to Vampire Opportunist, who tried to, I think I cracked a fang, drink from an Eternal back in War of the Spark. Oh, Guardian of Girapur, I just want to bring up just because Kaladesh Angels look so good. They always have red skin and forearms and blinded eyes. Oh, Kithkin Billy Rider, which I love. Kithkin are adorable Hobbit-esque people from Lorwyn. Or I say adorable. This one is, and this is how I want them all to look. Mostly Kithkin are kind of disturbing, and I don't like them. And sometimes they're supposed to be disturbing, and that's great, and they look great. But the regular ones that are supposed to just be cute, most of the time, their features are so off-putting that I've never really liked the Kithkin very much. If they looked like this one, they're great. Let's just fuck off all the rest of the Kithkin designs. They look really bad. Let's just have this one. Let's just use this as the blueprint for Kithkins going forward, because they really need a redesign, and this is it. This is great. I love this Kithkin. She's so cute. She's got little rounded ears and like a chubby face. I think let's just do that. That's just so much better than their ugly, angular, gigantic heads and disgusting faces. Why? Who and why? Why do Kithkin look that way? Kithkin are awful. They're like nightmare creatures. Yeah, Billy Rider, best Kithkin, by far. Just ride a little goat. I know they ride goats anyway, and that is adorable. But this one is so much more adorable than every other Kithkin that has come before it. Merciless repurposing depicts poor Urabrask being pulled apart by Norn's mates. As the harvesters bore away the last of his limbs, what remained of Urabrask heard Elesh Norn say, "Leave the traitor be." Which I quite like, because it's sort of referencing his original line of flavor text with the "let them be" line. I'm not really sure what Urabrask's fate is or what this is referring to. We'll get into why that's unclear later on in the video. Mutagen connoisseur is quite fun. Much to the Phyrexians' delight, sheer curiosity drove many to willingly surrender to completion. Yeah, it's very easy to imagine a bunch of Simic being far too intrigued by the oil to not get completed. And that's what's happening here. Onaki Javelineer. This is going to be a tough one to explain. The Onaki are a race of extinct ogres from Chandelar, the plane I mentioned earlier. Supposedly, they were, like, very advanced for ogres, and they were masters of dark magic. And they created the Chain Veil, which is a hugely powerful artifact that Liliana used to possess. And apparently, with the ways between the worlds thrown open, the Chain Veil's foul magic seeped from a vault deep within Ravnica all the way to Chandelar's dormant masters. So I guess the power of the Chain Veil is awakening the Anarchy spirit, because this is a spirit. It doesn't look like a spirit, but it has the spirit type. I suppose Kirkesh doesn't look like a spirit either. I think one of the previous Anarchy cards. It's just interesting to me that the Anarchy are always presented as these, like, highly advanced masters of dark arts and artifice. And when we see them, they just look very ogre-y. They just look like tribally ogres, swinging ogre-y weapons around. I mean, I guess they were more than that, but this spirit is throwing javelins. Maybe they're ultra-advanced javelins. Oh, Protocol Knight. Yes, I love Protocol Knight. Where's my lovely Protocol Knight gone? Ingress without proper writ of extraplanar intent? Unacceptable. I bet the Azorius have far more legislature written on extraplanar activities since War of the Spark, so this is great. I like that the Phyrexians are probably breaking some existing law now as opposed to just invading. Scornblade Berserker. Why did I write that? Let's find out. Before I fall, I will taste the blood of Sarulf himself, which is a big wolf. A big wolf from Kaldheim that we didn't see. It looks like the big wolf is here, completed in the art, and I guess this lady maybe killed him? Maybe. But it's strange that we didn't really see Sarulf anywhere else in Kaldheim completed. Same with Coma. Coma got completed. Or I think Coma's like an infinite being or something, so maybe like a part of it, an aspect of Coma got completed or whatever. And then two separate people both claim responsibility for killing it after it got completed. So, who knows? Dance with Calamity is great. Depicting the sky opening up on Innistrad and shit going wrong, a bunch of demons cackling, devils even cackling. It was just another day on Innistrad. It's true. Innistrad has gone through its fair share of apocalypses at this point. It would be nice if Unruly Mob got another reprint just for this set, just to reference the fact that Innistrad is under some kind of apocalypse again. And there's a couple of Mirrans in the set, which isn't something I was expecting to happen, as I figured we'd just move away from focusing on New Phyrexia, but there are actually a couple of Mirrans. Mirran Bane Splitter. I don't really mind the Mirrans mostly being represented by equipment in the last few sets, because equipment first showed up on Mirrodin, so it feels like it's appropriate. Not a particularly exciting card, just one of those efficiently accosted equipment that attaches itself and then has a heavy equip cost, which is a common equip card design. This is a pretty good one. It's nice to see the Mirrans again, but like, Mirran Blade was kind of like 90% of the cards that we got last set, so it's just that again, which is fine. Way more exciting and interesting is Storm the Seed Core. Oh my god, the art for Storm the Seed Core is spectacular. Jason Rainville. In that moment, the fate of countless worlds rested with one Dryad and a handful of the bravest Mirrodin had to offer. So this depicts a moment from the end of the story, which I can get into later in the video, when Ren is being taken to Realmbreaker by the remains of the Mirrans. I wish I had a better background in art history or something, or so I had the words to describe how gorgeous this piece is. God, their cloaks balanced against the copper hoard. If I was like to nitpick, there's not much metal in the flesh of the Mirrans, which was kind of a thing we didn't see as much last set. Maybe the implication is like the little hex plates they've had. Maybe that's their own body metal, but I guess maybe it was to balance against Phyrexia as well, but I feel like the Mirrans that showed up the last few sets, most of the Mirrans were lacking metal on their flesh a lot of the time. Save for the Volshock, because that's their iconic element. It was probably just missing from the prompt given to the artist, but it's just truly a stunning piece. I wish this card was a little better. It's not terrible, but it definitely doesn't replace your Overwhelming Stampede or Craterhoof or whatever. I really want to run this art, I just don't want to run this card. I'm trying to think of what I could, like, proxy stick this on top of instead. Overwhelming Stampede doesn't really feel like that's what we're seeing here, does it? We'll find something. Oh yeah, also alongside the set, it's really hard to tell what promo-y cards come where in Magic sets nowadays, but there's a thing called Multiverse Legends, which is just basically a bunch of reprints of famous Magic cards from Magic's past now again in this set, because we have an excuse to print cards from anywhere because we're going everywhere. And I've seen some people complain about this, and I understand because it's a bit head fucky, but I like that they've brought back all of their unique frames that they've done for each of the planes over the years, or particularly over the last few years as they've been going crazy with extra frames. Some of the frames aren't amazing, if I'm honest, actually. Let's just go through the ones I don't like first. I've never been a big fan of the Theros Constellation frame. It's not a particularly exciting frame, and then they just should have put constellations on the art of the creatures they've shown, and that's fine. There's nothing particularly wrong about it. Again, for the high contrast, spray paint looking art from Phyrexia All We Want, I'm not really a big fan of those. And they're here again to depict a few characters. None of the art is bad for anything. It's just not really my thing. They don't feel that Phyrexia. It just feels like kind of arbitrary. Same for Dominaria United, actually. Like, the stained glass thing, they're not badly executed. I think these are some of the better stained glass pieces I've seen. I just don't really like the stained glass card. And I feel like Wizards have used stained glass so frequently as like a motif, and it's been associated with so many things that it doesn't really feel Dominarian to me. Like, outside of the what the knight's called, I can't remember. Banalish knights have stained glass incorporated into their shields, but like this aesthetic has been used for Ravnica before as well, so it doesn't really, like, stained glass doesn't feel like it means anything to me in MTG. It's been used too often to have any meaning or like any specific association. I don't love this new Tarkia frame. I guess it's supposed to look dragony. It just looks weird. I don't think this frame has existed before this set. Maybe it has in like a secret lair or something, but this is bad. It's not a very good frame.
And why doesn't any of their art have colour? What's the Tarkia connection there? Oogism? I don't get it.
I think that's most of the ones I don't like. Well, Kaladesh, which is probably my favourite frame of all of them. It's a gorgeous frame, but this was previously the frame used on the Kaladesh Inventions, which showed up in Kaladesh and Aether Revolt back in the day as lottery chase cards. But this frame was used only on artifacts before, and it's an artifact frame. That's how it reads to me. It's like, it looks artifacty. It's made of the little Kaladesh filigree-esque effect along the edge, and it's like metallically reflective in a way that evokes artifice and artifacts, and it's been stuck on a bunch of creatures, and I hate it. Like, it just feels so wrong, and it makes me think these things are artifact creatures when they're not. It bothers me immensely. I hate this. No! Take it back! Also, there was clearly some sort of prompt that, like, these were supposed to be statues of people depicted in the art, which I don't like. I'm not really a big fan when they do. I'm sure this has been done before, I think it has. It was kind of vaguely done with that, like, spirit version of Avacyn, where it's like, oh, it's like representing the collective imagination of an Avacyn now, which was okay. Firstly, I don't believe these people are getting statues most of the time. Who's making a statue of Baral? Ragavan's getting a statue on Kaladesh? No, he isn't. This is bollocks. All the other ones I am a big fan of, I think. I left the other one. I put bad at the front and good at the end. Yeah. The Ikoria frame with the cute crystals referencing the crystals that are on Ikoria. And then they all have this comic booky style. Or I guess there's more sort of illustration-y, these last few, the ones that I particularly like, by Justine Mara Anderson. Those two, Zerda and Yorion. Absolutely stunning cards. It makes me want both of them, both of which I would play in decks as well. Yeah, the Ikoria cards have always had this like comic booky sort of style, which I don't really understand the connection with, like, monsters. Maybe Monster Comics is a big thing I'm not really aware of. Maybe Godzilla is a big comic line I'm not aware of. So they just do all the companions. Fair enough. Oh, Kaldheim. I don't even like Kaldheim really as a plane. I just don't care about Vikings. I appreciate Kaldheim. Same with like Ikoria and what's the other one? There's another recent one. Strixhaven. I think Strixhaven might win the award for my least favourite plane. I just cannot summon the energy to care about it. I don't even dislike it, really. This is what I'm saying. I don't dislike any of the planes. I can appreciate the work that goes into all of them. I just don't care about Vikings. And there wasn't enough sets for me to get into Kaldheim. It's like, here's like 1,000 things to learn about. I'm like, we're going to be somewhere else tomorrow. Who gives a shit? But the frame is gorgeous. What a gorgeous frame. I might buy a Cardur in that frame, actually, because I like Cardur. I know he has one of them. One in that frame. The storybook frame from Eldraine has always been gorgeous. I don't know if it's been slightly edited here. I need to compare that to one of the originals. I'll do that in the video and then say, yes, it has been, or no, it hasn't been. I think it has been. I think this is slightly different from the original. At least the storybook is less pronounced, but then it was always used on adventure cards, I think, before. Innistrad has a lovely frame, which I think is mostly... I think it's mostly supposed to be referencing the Harvest Tide Festival. It doesn't really evoke anything else about Innistrad, but it is a cool frame. The winner of the best of all these frames, though, for me, I think, is the new Ravnica frame, which is on a few cards. I showed briefly on that Misc card earlier. It's fucking awesome. It's so good. I love how on the Borborygmus art as well. It's hard to tell where the art ends and the frame begins. And they've all been painted in this, like, gorgeous Art Nouveau style. Aurelia looks fucking awesome. But particularly, that Teysa Karlov is gorgeous. That is such a gorgeous Magic card. I have to own that. I went to get a cup of tea. I think that's everything I have to say about the cards at the minute, so let's get to the story and how it was such a letdown. I guess I should give a basic rundown of what happened.
At the end of All Will Be One,
Elesh activated Realmbreaker, which was her invasion tree, which allows the Phyrexians to invade the multiverse. So at the beginning of this story,
we have a brief section where the three planeswalkers who were still stuck on New Phyrexia at the end of the last set story all escape. They're there for way too long and they all get physically imprisoned before they leave. Even Kaya, who that shouldn't be able to happen to. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, they get out. So then we see Elesh sending out her
completed planeswalkers to various planes to help the invasion effort along and conquer important targets, etc.
Cut to the surviving incomplete hero planeswalkers hiding out on Dominaria, where
they keep gathering for some reason, even though that's like the place where Phyrexians invade the most. It seems like a bad place for them to gather at the minute. Regardless, they're hanging out there and no one except for Chandra wants to help out with anything other than defending planes. Chandra wants to go and invade New Phyrexia again and try and stop it at the source like the others failed to do earlier, and because they failed to do, no one wants to do it again. Except for Chandra and Ren, who's a Dryad planeswalker who's really cool. Was really cool. And they go and take the fight to New Phyrexia, and a few planes get some focus. We see Tamio die to the Wanderer and some other, and Kaito, I think, and her son Nashi, which is mildly sad. And some other planes are being attacked. Kaldheim and New Capenna is being attacked by a Traxxas. We see a bit of that. Theros is then in trouble, I think. Theros is in trouble in the background because of Ajani. Cut back to New Phyrexia, where Chandra and Ren are attacking, and they team up with the Mirrans and Koth. Ren and Chandra's plan is, because Ren is a Dryad, and she connects to the trees that she hangs around with, her plan is to embed herself and then commune with Realmbreaker and see if they can get him to stop invading everywhere and sort of use it against Phyrexia. She also plans on freeing Teferi from Jalfir, where he's been stuck. It's his homeland that's been phased out of existence, or that he phased out of existence. He spent a long time trying to get back there, or get it back here, back to the multiverse, and he's been stuck there since his time incident in Brothers' War. Ren knows he's there, which she kind of, I guess she could maybe infer that. I'm not really sure how she learned that knowledge, but she's definitely one of the few people who'd have a better time inferring that, because she didn't know about Jalfir and Teferi's intent with it.
So she's going to contact Teferi with Realmbreaker.
Anyway, so then Chandra fails to get Ren to Realmbreaker because Nissa attacks, and her and Chandra have a sort of, a close relationship, which was like implies to be romantic until stuff happened in War of the Spark that undid that. But they're implying that it's romantic again, and because of the connection that Chandra feels, and also the fact that Nissa is just really powerful as a Phyrexian. Nissa stops them, and all seems lost. The Mirrans and Koth and Chandra and Ren are all defeated and captured by Elesh Norn in the Seed Core near Realmbreaker. Cut to Elsbeth, who we last saw planeswalking into the Blind Eternities, which is the space between the planes, holding the Silex so that it wouldn't blow up New Phyrexia and all the planes connected to New Phyrexia. So she blew up on her own in the middle of nothing, and that apparently caused her to sort of hang out with Sarah, who's this Dominarian angelic planeswalker god figure from Dominaria's history, who was, I think, killed by Phyrexians or something. I can't remember. Her realm was destroyed by Phyrexians regardless. Sarah is hanging out in the Blind Eternities for some reason, or like in nothing, I don't know, in some sort of weird planar afterlife. And Elsbeth decides that the best place that she can be reincarnated by Sarah is going to be at New Phyrexia to help out with Ren and Chandra. So Sarah reincarnates Elsbeth as a angel. So she's now all like divine and stuff, and she's like super powered, I think, at least. She seems pretty powerful compared to Elsbeth normally. So Archangel Elsbeth slams into the ground of the fight, whatever, beats up a bunch of Phyrexians, has a fight with Elesh Norn, and they chat with each other about the differences in their beliefs, and it's mildly entertaining. So with the help of Elsbeth, they get Ren to Realmbreaker, she connects with it, and Realmbreaker's cool, and probably one of the better bits of the story actually was Ren connecting with Realmbreaker. That was written relatively well. And it was nice, and then everything happens really fast at the end. Let's think. Once Ren has control of Realmbreaker, which is kind of implied that connecting to it is going to kill her, and it seems to be doing that. But regardless, she uses it to connect with Teferi. They use it to open a portal to Zhalfir, and Teferi shows up and brings a bunch of warriors, because Zhalfir's been preparing for Phyrexian invasion for, like, forever, because they thought they were going to fight the original Phyrexian invasion and got phased out, and they've been, like, pumped to kill some Phyrexians ever since, so they all storm out of Zhalfir and fuck up the Phyrexians, basically. So you got Invasion of New Phyrexia, which shows them all running out the portal. And it was cool. It was a cool moment. And also, Ren reverses some of the Phyrexian portals so that it allows some of the planes to connect and help each other out, I think. So this mostly manifests in the Angels of New Capenna, newly restored, flying around and helping out most of the other planes. It's really glossed over. I'll talk about that in a bit. But the Angels of New Capenna storm across the plains through the portals that Ren has reversed for them and help out using their angelic presence and maybe also Halo. It's really unclear. To defeat the Phyrexians or help fight them, bash them back. And on top of that, Ren decides that she's gonna squeeze the planes together with Realmbreaker. Now that it's connected to the wall of them, they're gonna squish them a bit. Not so they're damaged, but so that New Phyrexia is pushed out of reality and into the hole that Zhalfir was in. So they're gonna, like, push them together, and Zhalfir and New Phyrexia are gonna go like this. Yeah, does that make sense? That's what she does. So, like, I'm making it sound very silly, and it was kind of silly, but I don't hate this particularly. New Phyrexia is now phased out, poof, gone, inaccessible, not like erased, but like as Zhalfir was, it's stuck there, inaccessible to planeswalkers or anyone else. And Zhalfir, which used to be a continent of Dominaria, but is now its own plane where New Phyrexia used to be, which is neat because it means it gets the Mirrodin Suns. The Mirrodin Suns now revolve around Zhalfir, which I don't think is spherical, so I don't know how that works, but anyway. So now that New Phyrexia is phased out, that makes all the Phyrexians just stop working where they were. I don't know if they die, but they just, like, fall apart and, like, crumble and stop functioning all over the place. Because there's a signal coming from New Phyrexia, potentially directly from Elesh Norn, that all the oil on all the Phyrexian soldiers invading the multiverse and being completed by soldiers invading the multiverse are receiving, and when they don't receive that signal anymore, they stop functioning completely, I guess, which is upsetting. So that happens, all the Phyrexians crumble. We have a little epilogue on Zhalfir, which is quite nice. Everyone's hanging out. Not many people died in this story, really. Tamio died, but she was already completed. Is that it? Oh, Melira dies at the end in the process of helping Nissa and Ajani both become not Phyrexian again. Khan, he gives up his spark to do this, which was Vensa's spark, regardless, he gives it up to do some spark cleaning. He takes their sparks out, he cleans them, and he sticks them back in. Now that he's cleaned them using his spark. And that uses his spark. And they also need Melira there because she's the anti-pheresis girl. But she's pretty messed up at this point from, like, seemingly a pretty normal infection. But because she's so messed up, and it's implied before that the process hurts her somewhat, she dies from healing them, and Khan loses his spark as well. It does feel a little weird that Melira dies there, as it seems like she pretty much has access to every plane at this point through all the planeswalkers that are, like, accessible from the group that are there on Zhalfir at the end. Like, nothing can heal her. She's like, oh, guys, I've got, like, my wound is just infected, as a wound might be. I'm gonna die now. And it's like, isn't this magic? It just feels a bit silly. It feels like this weird, like, also we need to add, we have to throw in more character deaths to have this story have weight. So we'll choose Melira, everyone's favorite, and we'll have her die from, the irony, the girl that couldn't be infected by phyrexians died from a common infection. And it was just dumb. So those guys are back. The story ends with Nissa and Chandra kissing, which was okay, but felt kind of unearned. It's nice that it happened finally after War of the Spark. what was the phrasing? Decidedly ended that. But their relationship in this wasn't terribly written. It wasn't one of the worst elements of the story. And the kiss at the end was okay. So, yes, Phyrexia is defeated in a fell swoop. Khan kills Elesh Norn at the end, because he's like, I have to do this. And he's been, tied to this slab the whole time, watching all the proceedings, unable to do anything. And then right at the very end of that, he just, makes himself a body, goes over and just kills Elesh Norn. And everyone's already defeated at this point. Elesh is just defeated at this point. But it's what? He's you've been sat here for so long, all disassembled. I'm sure there's some other reason he couldn't reassemble himself, and whatever, fine. But there's been ages. Nothing has changed at the point. Nothing has particularly recently changed for Khan at the point when he's I'm gonna make a body now, and he's hold on, I need to do this. I need to walk out of here on my own, and he just makes a body. And then he's I'm gonna go fucking murder Elesh before New Phyrexia is phased out completely. So yes. And this all happens in about 10 chapters, which was more than we got in the previous story, but it just isn't enough to tell the story of the invasion of every plane, There's a bunch of side stories as well, that cover a few planes, and I've read most of them. I'll probably finish the rest, but it's just very difficult to summon the motivation to do so. Yeah, it needed more. And I don't want to, say that everyone has to read a book to keep abreast of the magic story, but with this kind of thing, it just to have the defeat of the Phyrexians happen within the same story as the beginning of the invasion, it was insanity, and also it meant that 10 chapters was just never going to cover it, really. The text isn't terrible. I honestly think this is better written than War of the Spark. There just isn't enough of it, and it's mostly better written. I think the characters are better written, a lot better written than War of the Spark. Some of them are a bit inconsistent and annoy me, but not like War of the Spark, where everybody was pretty much inconsistent. The descriptions of basic events and things aren't great, but the character work I generally like. Yeah. The biggest problem with this really is just that the Phyrexians were defeated so easily, so quickly. I was a little behind it midway through the story when I saw the spoiler render inert, and it pretty much killed all of my motivation to finish the story, which was then a real struggle to get to. It reminded me a lot of watching The Long Night, and that moment when the White Walkers all collapse, along with my investment in the show. I'm paraphrasing a comment I left on a video years ago. I think one of the worst things you can do in media to a villain is just undermine them and not really allow them to fulfill their potential. And that was definitely what's done with the Phyrexians. Alas. What a botching. Wizards kind of wrote themselves into a hole with how Phyrexia, and particularly the oil, has been depicted in the past, with Mirrodin being transformed via the effects of a couple of drops of oil, and just how all-encompassing they are, and how much of a terrible, horrifying threat they are, and how, one drop of oil can turn you into a Phyrexian, and the oil can spread and proliferate on its own seemingly, and it's just this terrible, incomprehensible, unbeatable threat, especially with them invading everywhere. So there's now the potential for oil being all over the place everywhere. They kind of had to be defeated in a way where it's they've all been erased from existence or rendered inert. There had to be some sort of big kill switch or something. They were just too unbeatable. And it was always going to feel unsatisfying, I think. But knowing that it had to be this way, the decision to have it be over in one set, I think was just so foolish, so obviously wrong. Because now I want to get into the Phyrexian invasion and the fate of every plane hanging in the balance. But I can't because we already know it's over. There's no time to linger on anything. And there's so much that could have been lingered on. It's just so bizarre. If this had just been at least 2 sets, then at the very least, the ending would have been pushed back into the one that followed. So there would be some kind of stakes, some sort of question about what the conclusion would be. You could go into the next set excited about what might happen, instead of just having the story crash upon the rocks before the set's even out, The further back that ending is pushed, the more satisfying it will feel, I feel. The kill switch wouldn't have felt quite so terrible if we'd had time to ruminate on the dire fate of every world first, and actually get involved in the conflict happening everywhere. We needed time to actually feel some bloody stakes. In a longer story, with decent pacing, that same ending could have felt like a resurgence, like a saving grace snatched from the jaws of defeat, instead of a bloody premature ejaculation. Sorry. It's just really hard to get involved in the actions of a bunch of megalomaniacal villains when they've already been undermined. I just don't understand why this wasn't given more focus. It's there is 2 sets. There's March of the Machine Aftermath, which Like, when I first heard the name of that, I was worried. The name itself sounds like an admittance that there wasn't going to be consequences in March of the Machine, or it wasn't going to be satisfactory. And everything we've seen since has not made me feel any different. Especially the video on Wizards' YouTube channel, basically just saying, March of the Machine has consequences. I think that might be what the title is. It's such a shame. And I don't think this isn't a victim of the, expansion of that product they make. Because, like, you could still have more sets come out each year and linger on the same, event, I guess, this time, for more than one set. I just don't get, what are they rushing to get to? I guess Lord of the Rings or whatever, but I mean, even within the Magic canon, like, what is it, Wilds of Eldraine and the Ixalan one, like, what? Like, I mean, they sound fine, but like, oh, it's so important we get to those quicker so you don't give March of the Machine. It's Day in the Sun, the big event, the invasion of every plane in the multiverse is given one set. This is just, it's just so obvious. Like, it's just a perfect way to just suck all of the stakes out of the set and out of the story. It's like you tried to make Infinity War and Endgame a single movie, right? Except that movie was only 10 chapters of a really short online story. I think there should have been 3 sets, really. It's such a grand event. You could have built tension across 3 sets, like you did this with when they just took over Mirrodin was done a million times better. Like, just have them invade a few worlds in the first set, and then that goes really badly for some of them and better for others, and you could have had those battle cards actually have some sort of alternate outcome rather than Phyrexia just getting defeated, getting their asses handed to them on every single world. You could have, had the battles be this, like, big, like, thing as to whether these planes were in trouble or not. Have them, like, lose on a few planes and win on a few in the first set, and then they're winning everywhere in the second set. And then in the third, just have the one battle of Invasion of New Phyrexia. It's not that it would have worked better with 3 sets. It definitely deserved more than one. I don't see how the Phyrexian invasion of the entire multiverse was, like, brushed over, rushed past.
Especially as WotC bloody knew that this was the ending that was coming, with the villains entirely removed.
Which I think would have always felt a bit dissatisfying. Maybe someone could come up with some really cool, fun feeling way for Phyrexia to be defeated. But I don't think the same ending where they're all, like, battle droid style, like, we blew up the whatever it was. The main reactor. That was always going to feel a bit rubbish, but I don't think anywhere near as rubbish as it did happening before anyone's had a chance to play it. Yeah, ultimately, I think this is more botched than War of the Spark, really. It aimed higher, but it fell harder. I think War of the Spark story, the book is terrible, but as a series of plot beats, like the story spotlights almost, if you know what I mean, like that story's not terrible. And at least it felt like it had its day in the sun.
And maybe the conflict on Ravnica could have been stretched over another set, but I don't think it needed it. And with the effective build-up already behind it, and War's singular setting, the event still felt like the finale to the Bolus arc, and its problems came from the quality of the writing, not the pacing and length of the story. Comparatively, March shows us a Phyrexian invasion that's written okay, but over almost as soon as it began.
And at the end of it, we're just left with a big event that just thuds on its face. Everything about Magic story feels undermined at the minute. Yeah, I think as much as the unsatisfying ending for the Phyrexian sucks, I think it doesn't really matter in the face of it all being over so soon. I think that's the real problem, is how fucking short it all was. Outside of the major problems, I also have a list of nitpicks I'm going to read through now. The Praetors and Atraxa both deserved better. Urabrask was okay. He got to say a bit of Norn, fuck you, Norn-isms. I shall read that out. Because Norn stifles the fires of creation with her pontificating. Phyrexia cannot thrive if there is only one Phyrexia. So Urabrask wasn't done too dirty. He gets his arms and legs ripped off, but and then disappears and is never seen. Someone sort of implied something's happening to him, but then it doesn't, because he's never seen again, and Phyrexia evaporates. Norn was relatively consistent and satisfyingly, ethereal, bad guy-esque. Evil Pope energy till the end of the story, which is good. But all the other Praetors kind of sucked. Like, Sheoldred gets her head cut off right before anything can happen. She does nothing in the story except get her head cut off by Ajani. Cataxius is just kind of there. He does a little revolt at the end at the worst moment. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. There's a little, like, her two loyal praetors kind of turn on Elesh Norn at the end of the story, and it's completely inconsequential, and I completely forgot it happened. But Jin Gataxia spends most of the story being like, is that advisable, my lord? He's kind of reduced to like a scribe. And Vorinclex is like furniture. He just sits there.
At one point, Norn rips off one of his horns just to chuck at Elsbeth. He just sits there the whole time.
Yes, not many of the praetors felt like they were done much justice. Some of the side stories are okay. I liked Gissa and Geralf defending Innistrad using zombies. That was quite fun. Their brother-sister rivalry of necromancers who use different... He's more of a Frankenstein type one, and she's like a magic-y type one. Classic ghoul calling, and they like to fight each other in necro warfare, but they put aside their differences to fight some Phyrexians, and they had a pretty okay time of it, because for some reason, Phyrexians can't reanimate Innistrad zombies, which is just, well, I don't know why. The Phyrexian invasion plan was pretty terrible. I don't understand why invade every single place at once. It just seems like a terrible idea when you could sort of spend, less resources conquering one place more effectively, and then use the resources from that place to conquer somewhere else. Like the Combine in Half-Life. Maybe the logic is that Elesh had to do it this way because when they didn't have enough control over Realmbreaker, so as soon as it was active, it was going to open to just everywhere at once, so they had to just be ready to invade everywhere. In which case, they definitely, the Steel Legion and whatever it is, it might just be Elesh's fault, but all the forces that invade the multiverse from New Phyrexia must have been, like, innumerable, must be, like, the biggest invasion force that the multiverse has ever seen, right? And where the fuck were they last set? We saw all of New Phyrexia last set. Like, they made a point of being like, look, here's all the sections of New Phyrexia. Look at everywhere in New Phyrexia. And where was the teeming shot of the endless legions that were ready to invade everywhere else? It just seems like, given this gigantic invasion force is being shown now and, had to exist last set because of the nature of this thing, where the fuck were they? They were kind of vaguely mentioned a tiny bit at the end of the story, but, like, we took 2 sets before War of the Spark just to establish the army that Bolas was invading Ravnica with. And that was more about the construction of the Eternals than it was, where the army would be from. But it's just very strange to me that there wasn't even, like, you think there'd be one card, like, of a Planeswalker, like, crying like a Wormtongue style tear at the scale of just this grand army that was going to invade all of the multiverse or whatever. It's just odd that was missing from last set. I also don't understand where all these red and black Phyrexians that are all shown in the invasion force have come from. Sheoldred's dead, and she was revolting against Elesh Norn last set, as was lots of the rest of the black faction, and all of Urabrask's forces. And now it's just like, I think there's one card with one line of explanation for this. Let me find that. Thrashing frontliner. With Urabrask in hiding, the masterless furnace host was unleashed on the multiverse to spread mayhem and destruction.
This was a thing the Planeswalker's Guide covered, to be fair. Each of the Phyrexian invasion forces and their praetor get a couple of paragraphs in the article. After Sheoldred's failed coup, Elesh Norn divided control of the Etched Host amongst the remaining Thanes, with promises of power and glory for the most successful. So that does cover the black Phyrexians, and the red ones, unlike the other hosts, the Furnace Host is not under any direct command. Instead, Elesh Norn simply sets them loose upon the multiverse to wreak havoc and destruction as they please, with no plans or orders. The result is chaotic but ultimately effective. Which is fine, but it still doesn't explain how Norn got them to invade for her. It just says Urabrask retreated and abandoned his host. It's funny how the article that tells you that Sheoldred and Urabrask both didn't lead an invasion force also shows you their art.
As, like, the art for Urabrask and Sheoldred both look like they're heralding some invasion force when they don't do that. They don't do that at all. This isn't really a nitpick as much as it's just like why do they do this? It's like a lame fan complaint. But, like, why don't they use the oil? I know they are putting oil on people and stuff. I feel like Phyrexians don't utilize if the oil is so powerful, and it seems like ludicrously powerful at converting people, etc., why don't they just spray it everywhere? Why isn't there, like, a big Phyrexian construct that's just, like, fucking garden hose spraying, well, not even that, like a mist of oil everywhere, just through giant jets? It seems like that would be the best way to complete a populace, in my opinion. Maybe that's boring, though. Maybe they shouldn't do that, because this would look boring. I think that would look cool. Do it.
To be fair, the Planeswalker's Guide did say that some of the Phyrexian seed pods that usually contain troops instead just contain oil and explode in the atmosphere to rain it down. Nice detail. I don't think there's any art depicting it, though.
Yeah, they take a lot of prisoners, especially in this story as well. I mean, it might be more to do with Norn's sort of, like, preening, wanting to show off to someone who isn't completed. But they take a lot of like live prisoners. When I feel like maybe they infect them with oil and then take them hostage because they don't like immediately transform. But it feels like all you really need to do is just like fuck you. Yeah, I jabbed you. You're infected now. That's all you need to do, right? So why are you taking all these prisoners? I don't understand. It feels like a bit of a retcon that angels are like the biggest anti-oil thing. It's just weird. Like, I mean, it's like we have completed angels before, so it's not like they're impossible to complete or whatever. But like at the end of the story, they just kind of the angels of New Capenna like steamroll a bunch of phyrexians, and then they're like, yeah, we'll go to the other planes, and it all happens in literally a paragraph. Angels just obliterate phyrexians all over the multiverse. At this point in the story, the invasion's going pretty well for the phyrexians outside of on New Phyrexia. And then Ren flips the portals around so the angels of New Capenna can fly everywhere else. And they just fucking take everyone out. They just take them all out. War horns echo throughout New Capenna, and the angels spread where they are needed most. On planes where they are worshipped, on planes where they are hated, on planes where they are completely unknown, they do what they have always done. And that's just it. That's all you hear.
Just before they go everywhere, they go to Theros and, intangibly help out? Or maybe they're invisible? It's really confusing.
There's like bits where angels are making oil avoid people's wounds magically or whatever. And I think there's a few cards that reference Halo being the thing that really saves the day. And that's not really it's kind of mentioned in the story, but not really. The story didn't cover the angels distributing Halo to everybody, so it's strange that there's a bunch of cards set on other planes that have Halo. And I think it's a story spotlight as well, but I don't know when that happened. I like the omens that are featured on a bunch of cards and things. There's sort of Phyrexian symbols appearing all over the place before the invasion, and maybe during the invasion, probably. And I don't think this has really given much explanation. I don't really think it needs it, because obviously magic is a magic setting. And there's omens all over the place. Probably on every plane in some regard, so I like the idea that the multiverse is warning its denizens about the threat of Phyrexia. And I thought that was cool. Honestly, you probably could have had that be the focus for most of the first set. Have a couple of planes be invaded, and then everywhere else is just going, what is this strange symbol? That would have been more fun. Fun to dwell on this for more than 2 seconds. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of consequences that are going to happen. There will be drastic consequences of the multiverse is a thing that Wizards said, and it feels like they had to say that in lieu of it being true. A few people died. The Kenriths died, apparently. The World Tree, the real Kaldheim World Tree burnt. There's probably you could probably list this happened on this plane. Heliod died on Theros. Kaya got him for us in one line of text. You know, it's like this. It's like, this happened here. Oh, something did happen on that plane. Okay, there was a consequence. A consequence happened.
And that's actually the bulk of the Planeswalker's Guide article. It's just a list of the various major planes and the battles they had and the scant few consequences they face. The faculty got completed at Strixhaven, the courts fell on Eldraine, etc. Usually just a couple of factions in each place, mostly became Phyrexian. To be fair, there are a bunch of leaks for Aftermath online now, and they do seem to be indicating some big changes, though what they're pointing to seems almost unrelated to the plot of March of the Machine, at least from the outside, and this video is already way too long to dig into those.
There's one line of text about Nahiri. Nahiri's back, which I don't know how to feel about. She sort of got defeated and killed in that way where they're obviously not dead in the story, where it's like, oh, and look, she fell amongst the rubble in the background or whatever it was. So she was obviously not dead. But she's back now without her blade arms on the cover of that booster. There's a line about her potentially hating her blade arms, which I liked. For the briefest of moments, Tazri swears an expression of horror flashes across her face when she sees her swords for hands. See? Even the real Nahiri agrees with me about her blade arms. Ren is the one consequence I feel that we had for this. Ren was a good, cool character that had been quite enjoyable every time she showed up in the story. And was enjoyable in this story. And she's dead now. So it's I guess that's kind of counts as a consequence, but it didn't really... The consequence is now we just have one less cool character. Okay, cool, great. So yeah, I honestly would have rather had Ren stick around longer than just provide the one feeling of consequence for this entire thing. But fine. Ren's gone. Ren will be missed. Yeah, especially next to trying to position Melira. I think in that consequences video that Wizards put out, they were like, Melira died, everyone! What? Not Melira! No! Oh no! She's such a relevant character. She died of an infection. A common infection, goddammit, we could have saved. Khan gets this bittersweet ending that I don't think he deserved. It's his relationship to Mirrodin gets a bit of a retcon. Then it's like, oh, I now pretend I understand the weight of all this failure, and I'm going to kill Elesh Norn as a sort of moment of closure to this dark period of my life or whatever. And then he's stuck on Jalfir, which fine, I don't care. And the card for him killing Elesh Norn is called Mirrodin Avenged, and it just feels so unearned. Like, Khan didn't do shit for Mirrodin, ever. For the person with the most responsibility for Mirrodin, Khan did fuck all at any point in the story. So, putting him on this card that's like, Mirrodin Avenged, and it shows Khan holding up Elesh Norn, and it talks about his failure on the card, but it's just like, fuck off. From all the Mirrans to Khan, fuck right off. Like, Mirrodin Avenged, and he gets to have Khan on it, just piss off. Piss off, Khan. You crusty juggler. You chancer. You fucking, false valor dickhead. For a long time, he'd consigned this place to oblivion. After Venser gave his life to save Khan's, the best thing seemed to be to live it in atonement. I think it's supposed to be leave it in atonement. Back then, he thought there must be some way to repair Mirrodin. Some way to undo all his mistakes. He understands differently now. He's talking about consigning Mirrodin to destruction, and he understood that when he was digging up the fucking Silex several years ago, so that's wrong. I like, at the end of the story, the Mirrans all leave, well, the remaining Mirrans leave through portals to go onto Jalfir, which is taking place in New Phyrexia, so now the Mirrans are free. They survived New Phyrexia. Mirrodin obviously is dead, but I like that the Mirrans survived now on Jalfir. There can't be many, and I thought at first it was just the ones in the Seed Core, because they didn't really mention any other portals, and that would have to be less than 24 people, I think, based on how the text worded things. It was very confusing. The amount of Mirrans they had was worded so vaguely that it always felt like there was only a couple left, where they'd be like, there was less than a few dozen now, and then, like, after way more have been cut down, there's only 24 left, and you're like, oh, okay, well...
Actually, the text says dozens of Mirrans again, after that last line, so who knows?
There was less than 24 Mirrans in the Seed Core at the end, and they all got to thingy, but also... Thrun was not in the Seed Core, and he's there at the end, so I'm assuming some other portals opened to rescue some other Mirrans that were still in the Furnace Layer, or whatever. The last of the Mirrans actually outlived the Phyrexians, which wasn't something I thought was going to happen, so that's cute. And they all live on Jalfir now, and I hope we get to see them again. I'll take a Jalfir set. We'll go see Little Mirrodin on Jalfir, that sounds so good. There's a bit in the story where they're like, Koth's never seen plants before, and it's like, he is a planeswalker, you know. I mean, he went around, like, trying to get people to help with Mirrodin, so I feel like he probably saw fucking plants on, like, the first place he went to outside of Mirrodin. By chance, Koth only travelled to weird, abstract planes where nothing is normal. The Elsbeth Koth resolution was quite nicely done here, and much better handled than their reunion in All Will Be One. There's a nice bit when Elsbeth sort of flies Koth in the air as a reversal of his, sinking her into the earth thing. His characterization could have been better throughout, really. Yeah, I think he was framed as too hopeless in this story, when that's never been Koth's deal. He's not hopeless. He's just, like, resolved to endless combat. It's not hopelessness. It's just bleak perseverance, you know? Anyway, I liked the resolution of those two together. Felt like it did more justice to their previous interactions. I'm not sure how I feel about Elsbeth being a superhero now. It's probably good. It's probably fine. She's not like Superman levels of power. It will be interesting having like a sort of very morally responsible, good, ultra-powerful character on the side of the heroes in the story, because it just feels like throw Elsbeth at it might be a solution to too many problems. I hope it isn't. She's not like super mega powerful, so maybe not. I feel like most of the mega powerful planeswalkers are balanced by some reason why they wouldn't necessarily get involved with stuff like Sorin or whatever. So we'll see how that plays out. It's not like I have much faith in the direction of the story at the minute. Yes, those are my major thoughts and most of the nitpicks that I had to say as well. It just needed to be more sets. It needed more time. This idea was too big for one thing, and it's been choked to death by how small it was. Everyone's investment in the flavour of the set can't survive knowing the incredibly unsatisfying ending before we've had a chance to play it. And due to the nature of Magic sets, that was inevitable and should have been planned for. And this is just such an obvious pitfall for this to fall into, and it's amazing that it did. The Phyrexian invasion of any singular plane is enough to focus an entire set around, and the idea that you could squeeze the story of them all being invaded into a singular set was absurd. And I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off. It's such a letdown. I mean, Magic's story's been in a bad spot kind of since War of the Spark, really. It's not like there hasn't been some stuff within that's been good. Obviously, I liked Brothers War, and Kamigawa was okay. The likelihood of them botching this was definitely higher than the likelihood of it being really good. But I hoped it might be a bit better than this. As it stands, I would sooner forget it. I'm annoyed, but this isn't necessarily out of the norm. The thing is, like, the story of Magic has never really been the biggest selling point. It's not the most compelling part of Magic's story, if you know what I mean. The lore and the flavour of the cards and all the work that the creative team puts into building the worlds of each set.
And the incredible work of so many talented artists that we are fucking spoiled.
Is astounding and on point every single set, even in worlds I don't care about. And that's still going to be true when we're exploring the wilds of Eldraine. As much as this is a big letdown, the story fucking up doesn't really change all that. It would be nice if it didn't. It'd be nice if there were good, compelling stories to connect all of the fascinating lore that Wizards create, and these events didn't continually fall flat on their face because they don't put enough effort into planning around the story at all, but, you know, it is what it is. I don't know, I don't really have a big, this should happen to fix Magic's story for the future point, but I really, personally, I really want to go back to the two-set block model. I think it's the setting and the story that is the thing that's, like, the biggest victim of the current release model. Since we've pretty much only dwelled on a plane for a single set at a time, I think flavour and lore has suffered greatly. It's a problem that I think all of the recent Magic sets have had. And I think part of that isn't just, well, the biggest part is that they don't get enough focus. But one of the other problems with this is that you don't really get to linger anywhere. There's no sense of being on the plane that you used to get from, like, a block where the setting would be focused there for a year or more, and it just gave you this kind of community-wide sense of like residing on that plane for that period of time or whatever until we moved on to somewhere else collectively. And I think lacking that feeling for so many of these sets has just made me care so much less about pretty much all the planes that we've only had one set for, basically. And the problem here, for this one, I think is even more pronounced.
Limiting it to one set has just killed the flavour dead, or rendered it inert. Even during the two-set block era, I still felt some kind of obligation to dig into the lore for each world, as we were going to be there for a while. But knowing that somewhere else is going to come along in 2 months and make anything I'm reading about Kaldheim or Strixhaven near irrelevant has the opposite effect. I feel no obligation to dig into a plane's lore now, and doing so almost feels like a waste of time.
Wizards just feel like they're constantly rushing to get to something else, and as a result, who the fuck cares about anything? And it's a shame. It sucks. I don't know how to say it. I'm really fucking pissed off. I'm sad about the story, but I'm still excited about the other bits of Magic lore that are exciting. And I can make videos about them, and we can all enjoy the good parts of Magic story together. I'll see you in the future when I'm talking about something actually good. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget. Just don't forget, actually, in general. Never forget anything. But the most important of those things not to forget is liking this video and subscribing. Subscribe to this channel. Why not?
And if subscribing just doesn't quite fucking do it for you, you can join all the beautiful people I'm about to mention in becoming a patron.
Thanks, patrons. You provide me the opposite emotional reaction to March of the Machine. I couldn't offer you a higher compliment than that. More people than I thought there was going to be. It's awesome. Thank you immensely, my brass squires and parcelmere. Look at their glorious names. I'm looking at them. They're definitely there now while I'm looking now. And on top of that, I've got a whole ball full of Mia, whose names I shall place on my lips. And their names are Ephesus, Yakub, Vukasin Prunik, Sebastian Rees, Storfeting, Cobra, Jack Rockstar, Eric Vaughan, Librarian of Leng, Stevo, Santiago Adia, Watcher 9132, and Chonga, King of the Mole Men. Thank you all. I'm blessed by your support. And if you also wish to give me your blessing, and if you want me to be as immensely grateful to you as I am to them, find me on Patreon, Silvermere. I tried to put a link on the screen last time, but it only lasted like 2 seconds. Maybe I can put it there. Now! Did that work? Yes. Let's hope so. The Battlesphere is ever expanding to fit new patrons. I promise it's more comfortable than it looks. And I have a Twitter account. That's there. I need to work. I can't get into my Instagram at the minute. I have an Instagram. I can't access it right now. Am I missing any notes about characters I want to say or anything? Let's find out. No, I think I covered everything. They didn't specify any Mia getting out of New Phyrexia, but they wouldn't kill them, right? I bet Urtet is alive on Jalfia. That's my guess. I bet Urtet and all the other few remaining Mia. Galma must have got out, right? So she's probably making Mia on Jalfia right now. That's happening this second. As we speak. Alright, I think I'm done. This video's gonna be fucking long, isn't it? Oh no.